Examination of the musculoskeletal system here, demonstrating Trendelenburg test. So you take the foot off the ground, pelvis hitches up. Indicate the muscles are working on this side. So pelvis tilts up. Trendelenburg. Examination of the foot, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, movement of the big toe, checking the medial arch of the foot. Looking at inversion, eversion of the heel, checking movements of the forefoot, the toes, checking examination tibialis anterior tendon with palpation of the ankle joint, checking function of tibialis posterior tendon, plantar flexion, inversion, checking function of peroneal tendons. Again, checking the power tibialis posterior. Thompson test, checking the integrity of tendo Achilles. Again, looking at movements of the hind foot. Palpating undersurface of the foot, which is very important. Examination of lumbar spine, looking at eversion. Measuring the extent of movements with the tape measure, plus lateral movements of the lumbar spine, rotation of the spine, that's thoracic spine, straight leg raising in supine position, extension of the hip joint, perform the patient prone. Thomas test performed, stabilizing the pelvis, checking movements of the other hip. Checking reflexes, knee, ankle. Checking sensation, sole of the foot, axial compression of the cervical spine. Moving to upper extremity. Checking stability of elbow joint. Provocative test for tennis elbow. Checking tenderness of the medial epicondyle inner elbow. Checking a motor power of the wrist for radial nerve type palsy. Provocative test for tennis elbow, feel here. Resistant extension of the wrist. Testing the function of other extensors of the digits. Testing pronation, supination of the wrist, or actually of the elbow. Testing motor power around the hip joint. Testing stability of the pelvis, the rock test. Measuring leg length differences at lower limb, take from ASIS up the top here, down to the medial ankle, very important. This is the Thomas test, so you stabilize the pelvis on this side and see what flexion deformity there is. Testing abduction of the hip joint and flexion of the hip joint. Measuring internal and external rotation of the hip joint, both in the straight position and in the flex position of the hip joint. Measuring rotation of the hip joint in the prone position, probably the most accurate way to do it. And down here also looking at rotation at the level of the tibia and looking at position of the foot. So you want to see where the rotation's at the hip joint level, at the tibial level, that's below the knee, or at the level of the foot. Checking extension of the hip joint. Examination of the knee, look, feel, move, observation, look at squatting. Feel, palpation of the knee joint. Looking for muscle wasting, palpating the knee joint below, feeling the patella whether it displaces laterally. Checking for fluid in the knee joint, palpate from side to side. Patella subluxation or bounce test and wipe test down the bottom. Showing the wipe test for looking for fluid in the knee joint. Looking for stability of the knee, whether your posterior sag and observing from the side and palpate and checking for lateral medial stability. Anterior posterior stability of the knee demonstrated. Pivot shift test looking for stability of the knee, actually a painful examination. Hope you found this useful. Good luck.